Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the council meeting of January 6th, the 1st of 2025. I'm hoping that you can hear me better. We've made a significant investment in public engagement, replaced all of our microphones, and we have some microphones for staff. So I am hoping at the back of the room, Gary and others, you can hear me. If I'm speaking too loud, let me know. No? Okay, that's great. Welcome again, and just to note that the District of Metchosin works to be increasingly mindful of our commitments to be in a more inclusive governance with our neighbors. I'd like to acknowledge our neighboring First Nations, the Ashiano First Nations and the Sook First Nations. With that, before you, Council, we have an approval of the agenda. We have 3 pink items here for items number 11C, 13A, and 7B. With those additions, I'll take a motion to approve the agenda as is. Moved by Councilor Donaldson, seconded by Councilor Schuken. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Next, we don't have any presentations, but we do have time for public participation. If you wish to speak at the microphone, you have 4 minutes. We've got a timer there. If so, state your name and your street. Everybody's welcome.
My goodness, a new microphone for the public as well. Yay! I've been asking for this since I moved here. And it is better, it is louder, but it echoes. I don't know whether there's anything can be done about that, but still it's an improvement, and thank you.
Okay, echoes. Anybody else?
Eric White, 4290 Metchosin Road. Happy 2025 to everyone. We all survived 2024. I just thought it would be good to congratulate you guys on another great year. And I'd like to give Mayor Lyttle a round of applause for her job. You've done a great job as mayor last year, I think. I think you did a fantastic job of officiating this room, and I just want to point out that I really appreciate the way you're doing your job. Thank you.
Thank you. Great way to start off the year. Anybody else have anything to say?
Good evening. Happy New Year as well. Jane Hammond, 5447 Rocky Point Road. I just was aware that I had some information that I wanted to pass along more publicly concerning the water situation in Metchosin. When you are talking about either increasing density or, more development, it seems to be there's always a comment about limited water supply. And I'm not trying to suggest that I actually have all the facts, but I did have a conversation with the water billing person at CRD back in the end of November. I thought that that office would provide the sort of the data about how many households are on CRD water. And then you can judge whether it's how limited. So what she, first of all, told me there was 1,255 connections, meter connections. Now, some of those involve, let me just see, I want to read. She then excluded from that number those on businesses, irrigation, and locations that have more than 1 meter, leaving 1176 documented connections. I then checked in with the district and talked to Laura, and she and I were able to kind of confirm that there's more or less 1,880 households. So it looks like if you look at the percentage, there's approximately 63% of people who have access to city water. I do believe that some of the connections, the water lines, have gone in at a time when people have decided that they want to join or not. So there could be still ones that have access, but not in that.
And your time is up, Jane. Do you have another comment that's quick?
No, the only thing I did verify that is strictly chosen municipality, that their numbers don't go. But thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening and Happy New Year, and congratulations to all of you for a previous year of good work in Metchosin. It does feel a bit like the inside of a spaceship in here right now. I think we're all having to get used to it, but certainly the sound is better. So I'm here tonight just to acknowledge Councillor Gray's request for information, which will come up later on the agenda, to look at getting more information to understand the subdivision process. I noticed that he does request a meeting with the legal counsel, and so my question was, is legal counsel necessary, or can the first step be getting information from staff and some of the experts that are in-house? Just looking at the cost of that, only because there are a lot of information already available online. Some of the things to be looked at, and I know he's provided some background here, but additional things might be, what are the obligations of the approving officer? Because the questions are really around what are a councillor's role in regards to a subdivision and what guides decisions of the approving officer. So I think those are integrated things, but the approving officer in many respects has the greater authority in all this that's defined through the official community plan and of course the bylaws. And then what I found, which was interesting, is looking at the content of the OCP. In some ways it contradicts some of the other policies that are out there. There's not a lot of clarity on them. And so I think that would be good to explore. Another thing I wanted to bring up, just out of just again some statistics, because we were looking at housing being focused on the potential subdivision lot potential based on the number from 2010 of the potential of 433 lots. When we looked at that and we remove the 28 that are in the agriculture, we're down to 405 lots. When we look at that and we look at the number that are in the upland zone, 58% of those lots are in the upland. And what's interesting, when we look at the OCP and we look at upland, it talks about these have slopes in excess of 30%, that essentially this is some of the most complicated, and I don't have the exact quote in front of me here, but it's some of the most complex and land to subdivide because it falls into that steep geotechnical development permit area. So so I think from a policy perspective, again, when we come back to looking at where subdivision can occur and where it makes sense to occur, all Metchosin's documents are essentially pointing to the upland zone, but underlying that it says, oh, and by the way, in upland you have to rely on wells. It's very steep, there's rocky outcroppings, it's going to require all kinds of engineering. So I think you're going to see more pressure on looking at options in other zones throughout the way. So as part of that analysis of the approving officer's role and the councillor's role, I think looking at that zoning amendment process is going to become natural. Because right now, if we're looking on this document as how we use the aquifer fragility as a test, there really isn't a test for municipalities because the province is 100% responsible for that. And right now, all Metchosin can require is that a subdivider prove they have water. And that means drilling the well even before the subdivision is complete. which doesn't have any, there are no standards for it other than it has to be drilled by an approved well driller. And then it comes to Metchosin after the fact. So there's some gaps there in, I think, trying to achieve what's in the background of this motion. So just understanding that in the context of the future review is important. Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, Ellen Frisch on Perry Cross Road.
Sarah Anthony, Metchosin Road. Similar to Ellen, I was kind of confused about this request for, this is so weird. It's like going back on you. A request for a subdivision, yeah. Oh, will that be less terrifying? Yeah, can you guys, oh, that is so much less like being in a literal echo chamber. Okay, about the seminar on subdivision process, because I would suspect that would be quite expensive if coming from a lawyer, and we have a CAO and a planner who I assume know a lot about those things. So it would be, yeah, I would hope that we could maybe get information from them first. If not, though, if you do want to do that, I would really hope that that would be something that would be open to the community to attend as well, so that people can all gain that knowledge publicly, if that's going to be the thing. Also, you know, I do kind of worry sometimes that some of these things are meant to find ways to prohibit people from having subdivisions that they're allowed to have. Some aren't, obviously, and we've seen some of those cases that were not so simple. But I think it's also, we hear a lot about the aquifer, sorry, and everything as a big concern. And I think if that is such a concern, we maybe need to look more at piped water and adding that to our community, because like down the road, eventually that, I think that's just going to be a thing that either has to happen because people need it, or the government is going to just come in and do it eventually, I think, if they have to, if they're not, you know, if people again need it. I did also want to comment on something that somebody brought up at one of our HIC sessions recently that kind of like, I know, I felt a little bad about for them, but I think it made an interesting point that we should all think about a little bit, and that was that they had come from another area, and the area they'd lived in before, they had done some work on their property, and they'd had to go through the process of working with the planners and with you know, the planner, with the building inspector and everything, and they were told, well, you can't do this, but, and then they said, it came to Metchosin, and it was, you can't do this. No but, no helping anybody, like, okay, you can't do this, but you could do this. And I think we maybe should consider that that's not a great reputation to have, you know? People are coming here and buying land, paying taxes the same as everybody else. That should be something that they should feel like they're getting that help, and not just be the land of no all the time. Thank you.
Leonore Davidson, 900 Speyside Lane. I'm not going to bore any of you about development. I was 25 years in that business on Vancouver Island and the mainland. So one thing I'd like to point out is I was looking up BC assessment, of course, for our taxes, and I noticed that there doesn't match this map any longer. Enormous the areas that are going to be fee simple, with not in your jurisdiction any longer. And of course, we know that the Municipal Act has been moved into the Housing Ministry, and there's no rezoning in British Columbia, and most of the municipalities are all having trouble with that, because how can they conform to what the government wants when you have to go through all those other steps to get any development? And we are under the gun too. And so you can look at Mary Hill, you can look at, on BC assessment, look at Mary Hill, look at all around our property, and Yates' 300 acres are all zoned as treaty negotiation and fee simple property. So there's no use even talking about development. Thank you.
Special council meeting of November 29th on page 5. Moved by Councillor Shukin, seconded by Councillor Epp. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. And then we have the council meeting of December 2nd on page 7.
I'm prepared to move adoption with a couple of amendments.
Moved by Councillor Gray, seconded by Councillor Donaldson. Can you explain your
Yeah,
amendment?
number 2, public participation. The last sentence reads, as she believes the costs do not outweigh the benefits of membership. And I think we should strike the words do not.
Okay.
And the second
It may have
amendment,
been that they took it verbatim, what she said. I don't know.
I think she said the costs outweigh the benefits.
Okay.
And then the other one was at page 9 of the agenda, 7A. And just the second bullet there, overtime bank limit is 3 weeks. I think just so we don't confuse things, that would be after, you know, if the motion was adopted and things like that. So this was in the discussion part, so maybe overtime bank limit is it's the word is. At the time, the overline, there was no limit to the banking.
Or is proposed to be, is that what?
Yeah.
Is proposed to be 3 weeks?
Thank you.
Okay.
So those would be just 2 amendments, if that's acceptable.
Okay, so with that, does anybody else have any comments? No? I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. And then we have receipt of minutes starting on page 11. Councillor Donaldson.
A motion to receive the Special Finance Committee budget meeting of December 5th. These are the minutes from that date.
Okay. Moved by Councillor Donaldson, seconded by Councillor Shukin. Questions, comments? All in favor? Oh, go ahead.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Maybe I should wait for the finance meeting, but these microphones that I'm just looking at the motion that I moved and a second by Councillor have to get hearing loops for this room for $2,000. And I'm wondering if we might, not tonight, but just come back to that. If we find out that this works very well with these new microphones for people with hearing aids, maybe we don't need to spend the $2,000. So these are quite elaborate microphones we've got tonight. So just a mention of that, I guess, so we could come back to it another time.
Okay. Okay, so did we have a seconder on that one? Yes, we did. Yeah, Shukin, all in favor? Opposed? That's unanimous. And then Councillor Epp with the Public Works and Protective Service Committee meeting.
Receipt of the meeting for December 9th. Move receipt.
Moved by Councillor Epp, seconded by Councillor Shukin. Any comments? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. So that brings to the mayor's report. Just very briefly, welcome again. It's going to be a very exciting year. We've had a strategic planning session and we've rejigged some of our priorities. We're going to move forward on that. It's going to be a very exciting and productive year. Unfortunately, on New Year's Eve of this year, there was an unimaginable tragedy of a young 21-year-old taken in our community. Samuel Beal grew up for the most part in Metchosin. He was killed by a direct fireworks accident. Samuel was a friend of my daughter and many school friends that are about 21 years old in Metchosin. He was very kind, very witty, caring. He was loved by all, and he had great potential. So, unimaginable tragedy. The mayor and council wish to offer our deep condolences to the Beal family. Okay, with that, let's move on to business revising. The Special Finance Committee budget meeting recommendations. Council Donaldson.
Yes, so we have before us this evening a recommendation, that comes out of the capital asset budget request for a bulk water station to be established in Machosen. The motion reads that council approve an expenditure up to $175,000 for a bulk water station in Machosen in partnership with the Capital Regional District.
Okay, this is moved by Councillor Donaldson, seconded by Councillor Gray. Comments? Councillor Donaldson, do you want to?
Yes, so this has come about after recognizing consistent concerns from residents. There's probably about 25%. We've actually heard a couple of interesting numbers tonight that are very similar to our findings as well, of residents who are on wells and finding that they're drying up earlier and earlier each year. I hosted 3 different water talks earlier in 2024 with different presentations that were educational in rainwater catchment, wells, piped water, cost analysis, those sorts of things. And they were well attended. We had full house on all 3 of them. We had a demonstration actually of a truck that is outfitted with being able to hook up to these stations as well. So looking at piped water, which is cost prohibitive, and the lack of provincial and federal infrastructure grants, unlike back 15, 20 years ago, which we had for Arden Road neighborhood and the Aquarius neighborhood, those are not as easily accessible. And that was also identified from the Wanupica Distribution Water Board, for which I sit as a representative for our district on. So I presented a notice of motion last fall, and later in the fall we did put together a motion that was accepted by the board members, and a lot of great discussion, a lot of really interesting ideas of people, specifically Otter Point, who has a lot of experience with this as well. The closest water station is Henry Ing Way, which is very congested to get to. It's in the city of Langford, and then East Souk, and then you would have to go to Otter Point. So these are just options, but given we don't know where we're going to be 10, 20 years from now, this is something that I have worked with the board on, and partnership. They are looking at 50% of funding from the district, and our CFO has found a grant to pay for our portion of that. So this is what this motion is about.
Okay. Councillor Shukin.
Thank you, Mayor Little, and happy to support this motion as well. I want to thank Councillor Donaldson for pulling this all together, and especially through the 3 sessions that were held earlier this year, we certainly saw tremendous interest in the larger question of water. And we know through lived experience that many of our wells are running dry where they did not before. So this provides us infrastructure to help address that. We're likely to not make it rain ever. And we are also likely to face more severe drought and also more severe weather too, which means so often the rain comes all at once, which isn't an outstanding thing for an aquifer and recharging. So I think this is a great investment, especially for cost sharing with the district. It is user pay once you get to the system, as I understand it. And I think it's a great investment in the long term for Machosen, so happy to support it.
Okay. Councillor Abbott.
Yeah, I support this too. As I mentioned in the past, I've been one of those people that did run out of water for many years. I was concerned about how it would work with the payment. As a resident did mention to me about a place over in the mainland where a lot of the water, most of the water, was used by grow-ops. And but in here it says that a key fob is used to access the water, and the fob keeps a record of however much water that person is using. So, you know, it seems pretty foolproof as a way to regulate what's happening and have people paying their fair share of the bill. I think it's really will be a great option for residents who run out of water, and who are even able to, if they have tanks, possibly able to, you know, to grow a garden in places where they weren't before because they didn't have access to water.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I agree as well. There's nothing more basic than water, and anything that we can do to provide basic services for our citizens, that's after all our role here. So, Councillor Gray, did you want to say anything on this topic?
I'll vote in support of the motion.
Okay, I'll call the question then. All in favor? Opposed? That's unanimous. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
And thank you for your work on that project. Okay, Councillor Epp, January 6th.
Right, so with this one, I did have a couple of comments on it first and possibly an amendment. Is that, you know, for me anyway, I don't see the necessity of having a subcommittee to look into the management plan. I thought it was a very good starting point. I think these things evolve over time, and I thought it was a good base point to get things going. The school is, there's been a lot of comments here and in the Muse about the white elephant idea of the school. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about the usage that we've had as far as rentals go in the last while. In 2024, it was rented by the Coast Guard, fire department courses, drive-wise, jiu-jitsu, dog training, Red Cross, the JI, Emergency Rescue Association, pickleball, other fire departments, the Sianu Nation, and MACA, to name some. And coming up this year already is pickleball is using it just about every night. West Shore Parks and Rec has a trial program they're offering 2 exercise classes starting this month, geared mostly towards seniors, and they're really neat. I know I've signed up for one of them, so if you see me creeping in like this, you'll know why. You know, there's first aid classes. The search and rescue is renting at Coast Guard again. Training courses and jiu-jitsu again, and there's also a very exciting proposal coming down the road from the Justice Institute, so there's going to be more on that coming up. And Mr. Creek is going to have more details on the finances in the near future, but he did mention that the school has brought in twice as much in revenue in 2024 as it did the previous year. So, you know, I feel it's really going as we planned, with the community on the top as far as the focus goes, and the others on its I think it's, you know, it's really is this. We always thought that once all the renovations were completed on the school, especially with the gym and so on, that the usage would increase, and it really has. So it's just getting to be a real going concern, and the finances are looking better all the time. So anyway, as far as this go, I think for me to be on this subcommittee, it's not that, you know, it doesn't produce that much, because I don't have a lot of problems with what's going on with the school. So I would propose an amendment that Councillor Gray work with Councillor Shukin and the CAO to be on this subcommittee rather than me. Okay, so I will move that we amend this. I don't know which goes first, but to amend it to replace my name with Councillor Gray.
Okay. Does anybody want to second this motion? Yeah, seconded by Councillor Donaldson. Comments? Councillor Shukin, then Councillor Gray.
Yeah. I continue to believe that there's a benefit to doing some further work to help us solidify a vision of the school, and not even just, you know, kind of the airy-fairy light vision, but it's you know, where are we going in terms of the potential for a long-term lease, or are we continuing to rent the gym out? And it's interesting for me, this whole thing twigged in that discussion last time, because there seemed to be a disjoint. Do we want a long-term lease commercial partner? Or are we happy to rent out? So again, a question like that. Do we know, for example, what it's going to take once we start really moving with the school in terms of booking, you know, booking technology or booking methods? And do we know what it's going to take in terms of human resources looking ahead, likely to next year? So to me, the goal here, whether working with Councillor Gray, I'm happy to take this on myself as well, or working with Councillor Epp, is to address and identify some of those key questions and put them in a format for council to further consider and adjudicate on them. So for example, what can we expect in terms of revenue generation from the school in over the long term? What's the best approach for using the classrooms? Is it leasing? Is it renting? And that's a key question, because if you find a leaser, you may jeopardize the ability of community groups to use those classrooms as well, because they're consumed typically by a commercial partner, possibly. What do we need to look at in terms of booking system, human resources? And there's another question about in terms of marketing and promotion as well. Like right now, if you're a general community member, you're pretty hard pressed to understand where to go to book the gym. So some of those questions. So the point of the exercise would be to work with Mr. Payette and Mr. Creek to frame up some of these questions. Key thing to me is really grasping what it is we can expect from revenue from school, and to understand fully that it is community center and what it might mean to run it as a commercial enterprise, which possibly means a loss of some community prioritization. So anyways, that's the background to what I was proposing and hope to do. So again, singularly or with a partner, happy to move ahead with it. So.
Okay. Councillor Gray.
Well, I've got to say I'm surprised. You know, at the last meeting, I'd asked specifically whether or not Councillor Epp was interested in doing this job before I would support the motion. In hearing that she was prepared to do it, then I supported the motion. I'm not as aware, obviously, as Councillor Epp is, and I mean, we've just heard a big list. We'd asked in July for a report from the CAO about, a staff report about what's going on there. And so tonight I'm hearing about it, but that's months ago that we could have learned about some of these things, and perhaps things would be a little bit more comfortable. I'm mostly concerned about the financial situation, and you know, for me to take part in this, I would need to have that financial information off the top, right? The start. What do we earned this past year? What does it look like? What are the possibilities? So I guess on first blush, I'm thinking I think I'm not quite on side in terms of I like what Councillor Shukin's come up with here, and I can kick in and provide you some ideas, Councillor Shukin, but I'm not sure that I should take on the role without further discussion about what we're doing.
Okay. Councillor Donaldson.
Yeah, I appreciate what my colleagues have to say. It's certainly, we do need a business plan for the building. We need to have a clearer understanding. We're at a great place now. There's been an incredible amount of dedication and work done from staff and volunteers since 2017. We are open for business, and we're seeing some more interest in it. How to manage that, we don't know. I agree with what Mr. Shukin or Councillor Shukin is saying here about human resources and how are we going to manage it, at what threshold. I do see that we have a lot of options. I mean, initially we probably couldn't afford to have, say, a booking agent, but we have 4 other models right in the core that we could probably have a chat with and resource just from those individuals, or maybe put it out as a stipend to somebody. I don't know, but there certainly needs to be some more exploration. It is costing the taxpayers money to subsidize it. I believe we can get it to a point where we don't have to subsidize it, or nearly to the degree that we are now, but this is something we would need to investigate. So it's an exciting, happening place, as Councillor Epp has said, and I think there's great potential. This is the time, and certainly whoever works with Councillor Shukin, I mean, I'd be happy to if Councillor Gray doesn't, but or whatever.
Maybe that's what I was thinking. Maybe since the business plan and the finances are within your portfolio, maybe you would be a better person to work with Councillor Shukin on this. And I'm always in favor of more information, not only for us at this table, but also for the community. more information will be helpful. Some of the information Councillor Epp provided tonight can be included in that report. It can be done, doesn't have to be an exhaustive process in collaboration with the CAO and the CFO. Yeah, I think it would be a good thing. Okay, so with that, would you be amenable to amend the motion to Councillor Donaldson, Councillor Epp?
Well, sure, it's fine. We can
Okay.
amend that.
Okay,
Okay, well, I'll second the amendment.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, Councillor Gray?
And as I've said before and said it during the meeting where this motion came forward, I'm completely in support of maintaining the school as a community center. And I think that we can do very well. And I'm pleased to hear the report from Councillor Epp tonight about all the things that are going on. It's just we don't know about those things unless we're told about them. They're not in our documents. They're not otherwise available to us to be aware of them. If it proceeds then with Councillor Shukin and Councillor Johnson, I'm totally there to help to kick in and help out, as I say. It's just a question of, I'm just surprised at the moment to figure out what to do and how to manage this. So I'll support the motion.
Okay, anybody else wish to speak? Okay, I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay, great. And we're moving on to reports for action. On page 25, we have a report from our Deputy Corporate Officer on the CRD Public EV Charging Stations, a license of occupation and utility and allocations agreement. Thank you, Ms. Hanson.
Thank you. The license of occupation and utility and allocation agreements outline the terms and conditions between the CRD and the District of Metchosin with regards to the CRD's public EV charging network project. The project for Metchosin replaces 2 existing EV charging stations, one located at the community house and the other on the road right away near Metchosin Cafe. The district will be responsible for supplying the electricity or the type B fuel and will invoice the CRD annually for reimbursement of the fuel costs incurred for use of the charging stations. And the term of the agreement is 10 years.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions for Ms. Hanson? Councillor Gray?
I just had one question, and that was the parking space at the Metchosin Community Association. Do we have a license of occupation with the Community Association for that particular location?
Through the chair, I would have to confirm that.
Councillor Shukin?
So through you, Mayor Little. So Ms. Hanson, this sounds like a pretty good deal. So the chargers will be installed at the CRD's cost through a grant,
That's correct,
and
yes.
then the electricity is also going to be reimbursed. The district will pay for it up front, and then will be reimbursed.
Through the chair, that's correct.
Okay. And then I also think that, like, generally our obligations are pretty light in this. Like, I look at Section 8 of the agreement, and it's, clear snow from the parking lots, and, just don't be intrusive in the general area. So,
Yeah,
Yeah.
through the chair, the district's responsible for maintaining the grounds around the charging stations, and the CRD's responsible for the upkeep and maintenance and repair of the infrastructure.
Sir Gray? Oh, go ahead. Have you got another question?
yeah, sorry, just
Continue.
one minor.
Yep.
So I don't know if we know this yet, through you, Mayor Little.
Mhm.
Who is the actual charging agent? Like, sometimes it's BC Hydro, and Flow is another one, or ChargePoint, and maybe CRD doesn't even know at this point, but sorry, I don't mean to.
Chair, otherwise I
That's
can
okay.
get back to council.
Okay, thanks. Regardless, anybody who's these days out there usually bills very cleanly and nicely, so, yeah. Okay, thank you very much.
Councillor
Thanks.
Epp?
Well, I think it's great, but I just did wonder, because when we originally talked about changing these stations, it was going to be a user pay like not the CRD user pay, but individual people plugging in that we're going to pay. And I was just wondering if you knew why that changed over to this different system where the CRD is going to be paying for people to plug in, because we did have in the past, like this was several years ago, but when we first got them, and I know being there at the community house, having a car, parked there overnight, and phoning, finally I saw something in the car that led me to believe whose it was, and I phoned, and this van drove up, and this fellow jumped out in his pajamas and quickly jumped in his car and took off. But he had been bringing his car there every night to plug it in. And he's not the only one. There was quite a few people that didn't have anything to do with anything on the municipal grounds that were plugging their cars in overnight. So I don't know if there's any way the CRD will be able to monitor anything like that as far as usage. They probably wouldn't. So I just wondered why that model changed.
Through the chair, I'll have to confirm that with CRD.
It just would be interesting to know, right, why we as the CRD are going to be paying for people to plug in. Thanks.
Okay. Any other questions? Councillor Gray,
Happy to move the motion.
absolutely, go ahead.
That council approve the license of occupation and utility and allocation agreement between the District of Metchosin and the Capital Regional District for the purposes of installing public electric vehicle charging stations within the District of Metchosin, and that council authorize the mayor and the CEO to execute the agreements on behalf of the district.
Moved by Councillor Gray, seconded by Councillor Donaldson. Go ahead.
With thanks to Ms. Hanson and Ms. Johnson, who worked on this, and Ms. Lazation, who worked on it in the past. I think it's very pleased with the development, so thanks so much. It's a positive climate action. It's in our climate action plan, and I'm thankful to the CRD, the federal and provincial governments, for their funding, and obviously moving the motion in favor of it.
Councillor Donaldson, do you wish to speak on that?
No, I think it's finally, we're going to use that space again. I share the sentiments of Councillor Epp. I wasn't aware that it was, that the users weren't paying for the electricity, so that's a good question to find an answer for. But certainly it will be an asset to have this back. Lots of people have EVs, and I doubt that very many will be doing it overnight now that it's a larger population. So yeah, it's good for us, for our climate too.
Okay. Anybody else wish to speak on this item? If not, I'll call the question. All in favor? That's unanimous. Thanks, Ms. Hanson. Moving along to page 59. The next topic is the Next Generation 911 Implementation and Operation Contract. CAO Payette, would you like to introduce this? Page 59.
Okay, through the chair. Okay, so Next Gen 911 for everybody is an upgrade to our current 911 system in Canada, where we're upgrading to digital from sort of an antiquated 911 system. I'm not going to say analog, but certainly we're moving in the right direction. Mandated by the feds, and this has been happening for a number of years to get to where we're at now. See, we have been working with the CRD for a number of years on this initiative, and the CRD board has supported the development and signing of bilateral agreements between CRD and municipalities that will meet the CRD and Telecommunications Commission requirements once the updated agreements from the TELUS Metro discussions were available. So what happened was, a couple years ago, they started with Metro Vancouver, they worked on the agreement, they fine-tuned it, and now that's what we're working off of, is all the hard work that was done through that process has migrated over to the CRD, and they've taken that model, and that's what we're with the agreement is reviewed by legal, CRD. The CRD Board of Directors has supported the agreement. Each municipality in the CRD has exactly the same agreement. Basically, the contract is to ensure that the necessary and regulatory compliant services are in place for the delivery of 911. So for us, we have two public safety answering points. We have ECOM, and we have a dispatch for fire out of Sasanich. So we have two PSACs that we have agreements with through the CRD. So we would be responsible to the CRD to sign the agreement that our PSACs are compliant. Okay. This is a non-cost agreement. That's it. Any questions?
Okay, so council, a non-cost agreement and it's mandatory. So do you want to discuss it? If you have any questions, please ask. Councillor Shukin?
Yeah, just one or two comments. I've heard that there's a bit of time urgency in terms of getting this signed off by all
Yes,
of the,
March 1st, 2025, right?
yeah.
The urgency for the agreements to be signed is the end of January,
Okay,
but then the CRD has an urgency for their top-level agreement
Okay,
signing with
yeah.
TELUS.
so as soon as possible.
No way. And I mean, the next gen thing is, Mr. Pyatt was saying, is really an upgrade of the system all through the country, moving from analog to a full-scale digital system. So this is happening, and I think it behooves us to be part of it. So, yeah.
Okay. Councillor Epp, your mic's on. Did you have a comment?
No, not this time.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you for the report, CEO. I did hear about this at UBCM 2023, and it was quite curious about it then. So great to hear how it's coming full circle. Not so great to hear about any affiliating costs that we may incur at some point, but we'll see what happens. But yeah, so I'd be prepared to make move the motion.
Okay, go ahead. The recommendation at the top.
That the council approve the Next Generation 911 implementation and operation contract, and that council authorize the mayor and CAO to execute the contract on behalf of the district.
This is moved by Councillor Donaldson, seconded by Councillor Shukin. Any other comments? If not, I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? That's unanimous. Thanks very much, CAO Pyatt. Moving right along to our third item. This is also from our Chief Administrative Officer, and this is the District of Metchosin Accessibility Plan. And so this is a plan that has been presented to us now for approval. It's a very overarching, high-level plan. And much work has been done by the corporate officers to get us to this point, and with the consultant. Who wants to discuss this? Who wants to bring a motion? Councillor Epp.
I really appreciate all the work that's gone into this, and I will move that the District of Metchosin Accessibility Plan be approved.
This is moved by Councillor Epp, seconded by Councillor Shukin. Comments? Yeah.
Yeah, thanks. Just to echo Councillor Epp's thank you to Ms. Hanson especially, and of course it's in the briefing here that the plan has been up, was posted in November, and there were no comments received, and I mean I can only take that to be a testament to how thorough the plan was. So yeah.
Anybody else?
Or is.
Councillor Donaldson.
Thank you. Yes, I've been following this process very closely, being the liaison for accessibility for our community. I remember when this first started, we were committed to $10,000 of our share, so $70,000 for the consultant. I had the opportunity, along with one of the other residents in our community, to participate in-person public engagement, which was incredibly interesting. So the consultants have done a fabulous job, and I appreciate all the work that the 7 municipalities and the staff have done to put this together. it's definitely timely, and I think that we do have some work to do, but I think we're already ahead of the games. We've identified some of those, what would we call it? There's a name for it.
Priorities?
No, the priorities were there, more the surfaces. They had like 8 priorities, but fix things like ramps, doors, and stuff like that. I can't remember what it was. In the first 3 years, it was more to do with technology and that sort of thing, but we already have identified there's things right in our community that we can deal with. So that's exciting. We've already, got ahead of that. We don't have things like sidewalks and whatnot, but we do have lots of ways that we can improve accessibility. We've already done some of those things, as is cited in the report. I was excited to hear that our first responders are taking ASL, which I did many, many years ago, so I'm not a proficient at it. I was wondering if it was going to be offered to our CERT volunteers as well, seeing how they're also working with frontline residents, and that's so something that we might want to consider in the future as well, being a part of our school and our residential community services that they offer. So that was quite thrilling too. So no, this is fantastic. I really appreciate having participated in the ways that I have, whether it's in person or surveys.
Okay.
So yeah.
That's a good point, and this plan is meant to be a live document, to be built on every year and to be assessed, not to put on the shelf, never to be seen again. It really is meant to be a living document that has meaningful objectives. Okay. Okay, anybody else? Okay, Councillor has put forward the recommendation to be approved. I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Nobody's opposed. Thank you. And next we have reports for information. First of all, we have the District of Metchosin Building Inspection Department report. And so this is one of the best ones because it has the whole year for us to review, with the total revenue of $125,000 into the municipal coffers, as well as the additional revenue and a breakdown of the permit issues. With that, I'll take a motion to receive the report. Moved by Councillor Donaldson, seconded by Councillor Gray. Comments? Go ahead, Councillor Gray.
Yeah, thank you. I just wondered if, we review these documents, is it once a month? This one and the next one's coming up, the public communications and the CRD. And just hoping that staff would draw our attention to any concerns they might have with them, any trends or highlights. I'm just anxious, I read through them and try to make sense of all the figures, but if there was something we should know about, I'd like it to be highlighted for us.
Okay, so noted. With that, I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. And the District of Metchosin Public Communications report statistics. So this is the correspondence we received from the public regarding a number of different issues. We see that roads remains to be one of the key features that people are reporting activity on. Of course, at this time of year, we'll have notes about trees and branches and carcasses on the roads, as well as the bylaw enforcement in the general. Do I have any comments, questions regarding this? Councillor Donaldson.
Yes, when I was looking at this, I appreciate that it's the full year because it gives you a better scope of things. So I was looking at land use, it's to date is 35 reports come in. And then when I go over to the CRD one, and what I was looking for were soil deposits or, illegal dumping, that sort of thing. But then I found the information more on page 117, which is in the CRD report, but I wasn't sure how each of these correlates with the other. And I suspect that with the PCR forms that people come in and fill out don't always go to bylaw because our staff takes care of quite a few things in-house. So I don't know if I've answered my own question or not, but the verbiage in this report and then in the CRD report are different. So I had to sort of dissect it a little bit to kind of find that information. It wasn't clear in here if people are actually coming in and saying, hey, you know, my neighbor's putting the soil in here, are they allowed to or not, or whatever. I get a lot of questions on this sort of thing, so I'm trying to educate people where to find the information. And that, so again, it's that communication point. I think somebody earlier was saying, you know, not to be the land of no, but to set people up for success. So, yeah, something that we might want to think about in the future as to, you know, how do we correlate the information. But certainly good to see the statistics. I appreciate them for sure.
Okay, good points. Anybody else? Okay, with that, I'll call the question on receipt. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. And as Councillor Donaldson said, next we have the CRD reports on bylaw enforcement, the summary for 2024. It is really interesting when people say there's no bylaw enforcement in Metchosin. Facts are, we do have bylaw enforcement in Metchosin. We'd like to do more, but we have limited resources. Does anybody have any comments regarding the year-end summary of our bylaw enforcement? Councillor Donaldson.
So just on the same theme that I was talking about, where it talks about the deposit of fill, what was really interesting here is they've given us month to month, and as my colleagues at the table will know, there are 6 months of the year you do not have soil deposits or aggregate deposits, whatever it is, in Metchosin, and yet you can see here that actually year-round this is happening. So again, another thing to consider. I think I worked it out, was like 43% is of deposits are, was it 43% occurring in the off-season when it probably should not be.
Okay. We have to do some more education. Okay. With that, did you move that? Did we have that moved received by Councillor Shukin, second by Donaldson? Okay, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay, and then we have the West Shore Parks and Recreation staff report. This is the municipal owners. Of course, we are owners, co-owners of the West Shore Parks and Recreation. They would like us to receive this report for information. There's information regarding the latest RFP process for Parks and Recreation Master Plan. Councillor Donaldson, you're our liaison to the West Shore Parks and Recreation. Did you want to comment on the
Sure.
RFP?
Sure. So the RFP went out for the purpose of looking at the West Shore more regionally. There are five owners. There's View Royal, Colwood, Langford, Highlands, and ourselves. And the site is pretty much at its capacity. And so we are looking at different satellite sites, and obviously our school is going to be used, hopefully, more than just on a pilot project. But this is going to be what they're hoping to do. What they are going to do now is they've hired this company, and it's $140,000 that we're investing in this management company. We also have our own CAO, Metchosin CAO, Mr. Payette, and the Colwood and Langford senior staff and West Shore CAO that will be working as a committee. So hoping that Mr. Payette will be giving us some intimate inside scoops onto what's happening, but they will also be having a community engagement in February and March, so hopefully we'll hear more from our own community what we would like to see happening across the region and within Metchosin perhaps. So it's very exciting. I think that Mr. Payette might have some insight too. So if we could maybe ask him if he's heard anything so far.
CEO Payette, did you want to add anything to the West Shore Parks and Recreation report?
Oh, interesting.
Through the chair. Well, so our committee has selected a consultant to do the master plan, and they're out of Vancouver. I can't remember the name of the consultant company, sorry. There were two proponents. RC Strategies and
Expedition.
Expedition, thank you. And so Expeditions won the competition. It was really like tight. They were both excellent companies. And so they are launching their study as we speak. And so until we get their documentation on the process for their study, I don't have much more else to report on. And I'm not even sure of my full involvement at this point, but I'll keep informed and give you guys updates. I think it'll be exciting. It'll take about 6 months to get through the study, and there will be public consultation, and so I really look forward to that information.
Okay, great. Councillor Gray.
Maybe I could just ask through the chair, Mr. Pratt, do we know, if they're doing a 20-year plan, looking at the needs, will they do different costing scenarios? Like, or how will they how will we later on look at it to say we want to support it or not, vis-a-vis the costs?
Costing scenarios, management scenarios, facility use scenarios, appropriate size facilities, types of facilities, a full gamut of master plan review. So everything above and more in the study.
That
Yeah,
sounds
for
great.
all of our municipalities. Yeah.
Thank you.
Good.
Okay, anybody else have any questions? If not, Councillor Donaldson, a move to receipt.
Move to receive the report from the West Shore Parks and Recreation staff.
Okay, this is moved by Councillor Donaldson, seconded by Councillor Epp. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. And we have some correspondence for action. The first is a letter from the Wounded Warrior, Run of BC. It's not really a request for specific donations. Well, I guess they say please consider a donation, but also invitations to their gala dinner, their one-day run from Souk to Sydney on Sunday, February 2nd, and the main run event in Victoria from Port Hardy to Victoria. If you want to participate in that, you're most welcome. I'll even sponsor you. That's February 23rd to March 2nd. I was going to suggest that we have our staff contact Jacqueline and ask her to submit a grant and aid application. I think that would be most suitable. Yeah. Okay, so let's do that. Anybody else wish to speak? Certainly a great organization. They do wonderful work with veterans and personnel working with trauma and PTSD. Councillor Donaldson?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, I looked it up, it didn't say on here what the cost was for the gala, so I had looked it up some time ago, but I found it again this morning. And so if anybody in the community wants to take a table of 12 people, it is $2,000 a table, or you can go at $175 each. So I'm not sure what the funds is that they would want for grant and aid, but certainly we would welcome them to join us for requests in that regard as well.
Okay. I was wondering, Fire Chief, do you have any comments regarding the Wounded Warrior? If you can come to the microphone.
Yes, thank you. Just for your information, the Metchosin Fire Department has been involved in that run for a number of years. In fact, Eric Meredith,
That's right.
yeah, ran it 1 year. So every year we do participate, and we typically, the Society Association usually purchases 1 or 2, sometimes 4 or 5 seats to the gala as well. So
Okay.
we participate in both the Souk and the main run from Up Island down here to
Yeah, I forgot that.
Langford.
That's great.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay. Could I have a motion to receive for information and to ask staff to contact Jacqueline? Moved by Councillor Shukin, seconded by Councillor Donaldson. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. And next we have a letter from the province, from Brenda Bailey, the Minister of Finance. This is a formal invitation to participate in the 6th annual consultation on the speculation and vacancy tax. Housing affordability, as you know, is critically important in BC and remains a key priority for the provincial government. And they're wanting some feedback and some consultation. So they're asking us to participate in the consultation process for the first time. It doesn't really give any more information on that, but I would certainly like to be open to say that we will consult with them, of course. What do you think? Everybody's, go ahead.
Thanks, Mayor Little. I don't really have any comments myself on the program. It seems to be, working somewhat slowly. If you look on page 141, you'll see in the middle table there the number of non-exempt projects, so those who are subject to the speculation tax, actually have dropped year over year from 22 to 2023. So that's what the province wants. It wants people in those homes, or those homes sold to people who will put people in the home. So slowly and surely it's working. And then, of course, the province has come up with another thing around the home flipping tax, which came into effect just this year. So it's just one of the other elements. And I mean, it doesn't apply to every community. It does us, but again, it just seems to be trucking on and probably doing its thing. And I mean, I don't have anything meaningful to say or provide to the government itself. So I would just, if no one else has anything, I would just move receipt of the letter.
Okay. Go ahead, Councillor Gray.
I'll second that.
Okay. So does anybody have any comments regarding the report that you would like to relay back to the province? I couldn't come up with any other quick fixes myself, but
Similar to Councillor Shukin, I mean, right in the second paragraph, it seems it's working as intended. And I think that it does affect our community. Last year, I believe we just received the report.
okay. Okay. So move receipt from Councillor Shukin, seconded by Councillor Gray. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. And then on page 143, we have a letter from Mayor Marianne Alto from the City of Victoria regarding a resolution that was passed by her council. This is to all the mayors and councils of the 12 neighboring CRD municipalities, wondering if we would take on the hosting the Caledonia Place, which is also called Tiny Town. And if there's an interest in that, we should reply back. Well, I can start off. I don't think it's suitable to have a tiny town in Metchosin because the ancillary services are in Victoria. And so that we don't have any services for them. And quite frankly, we don't have any land. Vacant land that we could use for this that would be suitable. But I'm also open, as always, to suggestions. Does anybody else have any comments? Suitability or otherwise? Go ahead, Councillor Dawson.
I agree with you. I actually went online to do a search to find out a little bit more about it, and there was a Czech News video clip of Councillor Cardona, I think his name was, and he's suggesting probably within the 2 to 3 kilometer mark from where it is right now. So identifying the same thing is that you do need those amenities for people for their appointments and that sort of thing too. So, yeah.
So more suitable for Senators Weimalt, perhaps.
Perhaps.
Councillor Gray.
Yeah, I'm also in agreement with you, Mayor Little. I guess, though, this is a really severe problem that we're having in the greater regional district. And I see the issue that Victoria's dealing with. So I think it would be appropriate to respond to Mayor Alto just to say, we don't have the sewers, we don't have the amenities, we don't have the limited transit facilities. And so we don't think it's correct or appropriate to have this out in Metchosin. So I just think it warrants a response because this is a big issue for them, and we are part of the bigger picture. I don't know if there's costs associated particularly for whether they receive provincial support or not, or whether we should be offering that kind of support. I know it's a big issue for some in the community in terms of the housing group that's meeting, talking about housing for people who don't have the opportunities. So it's an issue in our community. It's just that we're not experiencing it in the same way. But we're part of the bigger whole, I suppose.
I'm happy to write a letter back, absolutely, to Marianne Alto. Yeah. Okay, with that, I'll take a motion to receive, and I will write a letter. Moved by Councillor Shukin, seconded by Councillor Epp. Did you want to say something else? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Great. And then we have correspondence for information. The first is from the UBCM President Trish regarding the Canada Community Building Fund. It's always a great letter to receive that we have received $147,000 in December of 2024 for the Canada Community Building Fund. Okay, so take a motion to receive, moved by Councillor Donaldson, seconded by Councillor Shukin. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. And then we have a grant and aid report from Wildwise. They've received a grant from us in the past, and they were pleased to outline how their funds were allocated. I'm very pleased to see that not only did they report back to us, but outlining what they've used their funds on: education materials and signage, fundraising products, annual operating costs, travel costs, volunteer appreciation, and assistance with rescue efforts of the orphan bear cubs in Souk. So they have yearly costs of just over $10,000. So the grant that they received from the District of Metchosin on behalf of the citizens was well received and with gratitude, and looks like they put it to good use. Okay. Anybody else want to comment? Councillor Shukin? No? Moved by Councillor Shukin, seconded by Councillor Epp. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. And bylaws. On page 149, we have the Advisory Select Committee Amendment Bylaw 706. We have a recommendation here. The purpose is to bring forward the amendment to the District of Metchosin Advisory Select Committee Bylaw number 493, and to include provisions around the district's respectful workplace policy and general housekeeping amendments to the bylaw. Okay. You've all read the report. We have something here. I'm just wondering, Ms. Hanson, I was wondering if there's anything else that you wish us to clearly understand regarding this bylaw?
So the bylaw 706 amends our advisory committee bylaw number 403 and includes the provisions around the new District of Metchosin respectful workplace policy. Mm-hmm. The bylaw it has includes provisions that the committee members, newly appointed committee members, will be given a copy of the policy, as well as the advisory committees would be required to review the policy annually. And we've just also included and felt that it was important that the advisory committees also review the advisory committee bylaw, the advisory committee's terms of reference, and the council procedure bylaw annually. Okay. And then just that other general housekeeping amendments were made just to keep things in line with the committees following the our procedures bylaw as well during meetings.
Okay, great. Councillor Gray.
Just one question through the chair. I'm realizing that there's a requirement on an annual basis for the members to select a chair, a vice chair, and a recording secretary.
That's correct.
Is it okay within that if the recording secretary has somebody else do the minutes at different meetings? We tend, in MEAS, they circulate we circulate the minute taking.
Yeah.
So one person's the official secretary, and then they can hand it off for any particular meeting? And that meets the procedure bylaw, okay?
Through the chair, yes, that's what the committees seem to have done because they can't find somebody to commit to, or most of the time to commit to doing them all year round.
Okay, great. The permission was there under, I think, G, but we're deleting G, so we don't have the permission anymore. I just want to be sure we can still do that.
I think it was G and H that
G
we
and
were.
H, yeah.
So I think G and H were provisions around the chair setting the rules of procedure during the meetings. So we're gonna we're just striking those because the advisory committees should be following our council procedure bylaw when it comes to meeting procedures versus setting their own rules. So I just wonder if you have a different version?
No, I'm happy with the clarification that the minute taker can rotate. That's great, thank you.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions regarding this bylaw? Councillor Gray, do you have another one? No. Go ahead.
I'd like to move the motion, but I do have an amendment. That council give first, second, and third reading to the Advisory Select Committee Amendment Bylaw number 706.
Okay, so this is moved by Councillor Gray. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Donaldson?
And I just wanted to amend it that in the new bylaw, it's the title of MEASC. So it's been changed here under 2.2.2, Environment and Natural Areas Advisory Select Committee. So at the moment we call it MEASC or MEASC, and suddenly we'd be calling it MEAN-ASC. And I would just prefer that we leave it as MEASC.
As O in here.
Just a typo.
Sorry.
Just to strike the words "and natural areas."
Is that on page 151?
151, middle of the page,
Yeah.
The following committees are hereby established.
Okay. That's great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, with that amendment to MEASC, I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Hanson.
Mayor Little, could I just see who seconded that?
That was moved by Councillor Shukin, seconded by Councillor Donaldson.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Did I
Gray.
say Councillor? Yeah, I meant Councillor Gray, Councillor Donaldson. Yeah. Okay, moving along to the last item. We have a notice of motion from Councillor Gray from the December 2nd meeting. Councillor Gray.
Second for discussion.
This is moved by Councillor Gray, seconded by Councillor Shukin. Go ahead. Turn your microphone on, okay?
Sorry.
Mhm.
And I think that it would be a useful thing for us to do to all understand what's happening. I feel that I'm not understanding it very well. I'm not sure about others, but of course I can't have a legal time with a lawyer without everybody being there. I'm hoping that others would also appreciate the opportunity to learn more and become well informed.
Okay. Councillor Shukin, did you want to? No, Councillor Epp first, go ahead.
Well, I'm not supporting this motion. I mean, I think it's okay, but I think it's a very expensive process. Next week, we're moving to a committee of the whole, which was, the whole idea of that was to try to reduce some of the workload on staff. And I think something like this would, again, be expensive as far as a lawyer, and also and be more costly for staff. I was looking up some of the responsibilities and the duties of the approving officer, and it did say that it's really important, and it's under Section 77 of the Land Title Act, and it says that it's very important that the approving officer act independently when considering whether the proposed subdivision is appropriate, and complies with provincial acts and regulations, complies with local government bylaws. And that's where, you know, Metchosen's bylaws and subdivision bylaws come in. It says the factors an approving officer must consider include, and this is in the Land Titles Act, land use, lot size and shape, road status, safety of access, public health and safety, potential impact of geotechnical hazards and flooding on the subdivision lots, impacts to archaeology and environment, environmental and heritage values, other physical, social, and economic considerations, development cost charges on parkland, works and services, and approvals from other agencies. So I really think that, I mean, that's just one place, and I think there's a lot of, already a lot of pretty cut and dried information about the duties of an approving officer. And so I think that the approval of bylaws is also out there. I don't think that we need to reinvent the wheel or even to go to legal counsel. I think that it's all out there. I think, you know, if we want to have a list of the things that are legalities that are already printed, you know, that's fine for us to look at. But I just don't feel that this is necessary.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else wish to speak? Councillor Shukin.
Thank you, Mayor Little. A few questions to Councillor Cray. So would you see the session being held in camera, in public eye?
I expect in camera, although if, depending on staff advice, perhaps part of it could be in camera and part in public.
Okay, great. That was my main question. I do want to hearken to what Councillor Epp had raised, and I think there's a lot of information out there now that points the way in terms of the role of the CAO, the approving officer, the role of council. There's also some great reading in terms of legal cases as well. Type in subdivision into the Canadian Legal Index, and there's interesting stuff that comes up. There, of course, was an interesting case in Highlands a number of years ago that, talked about the role of approving officer and the role of counselors as well. I'm having a hard time with this one, though, if it is just simply around sort of the basics. If we were to delve into more interesting things, like, for example, I don't know a ton about this, but development permit areas and how they may influence subdivision. Again, some of the stuff that, you know, we've probably heard mentioned, the Green Tools bylaw kit, the Green Bylaw Toolkit done by Deb Curran. Like, if the desire was to maybe dip into that a little bit more, I could see it, but I think that there's some groundwork we can do to understand the basics without engaging legal counsel. And even if it's just written information to get us going. The other thing too, and Ms. Fritsch brought this up earlier, is do we need to rely on a lawyer, or could we find a qualified professional like a planner who knows the thing and maybe cut costs? But I'm having a hard time just thinking about doing this on a basic level. Perhaps some information from staff, but I don't know if engaging a lawyer necessarily on basic questions is good use of our time and money. Yeah.
Councillor Donaldson.
Thank you. I like the idea of actually knowing more about the subdivision process, but more on the basic level. I have had lots of questions presented to me from people that are near a subdivision taking place right now, and I have no answers. I don't know the process of going through a subdivision. I've never done it myself, and I've not been affected by it direct, well, that's not true. I had one behind me, but it didn't really affect me that directly. So it would be nice for people to understand, including myself, the basics, you know, what are the steps involved, who's responsible for what, the details of it. I know I checked out the land title sections as well, and it's very involved. I'm not sure that I need to know that much information, but we have an OCP. How does that apply? When do we, you know, where, you know, what are the first 5 steps someone would need to do or understand if there were to subdivide, or if there was a subdivision near them and how it may or may not affect them, or do they get notified or whatever. Similarly, we do what we do with variance and that sort of thing. And do we have staff of expertise that could share that, or maybe one of our neighboring communities that has staff that does, that would come in and do a presentation or something prior to a meeting, you know, like a 15-minute PowerPoint or something. I really don't know, but I do understand that having a lawyer here would be, or not even here, even if we did get them on a Teams, you know, for half an hour, that could be costly. So the thing is, what level of information are we looking for? I think information and education is always valuable, and it would set up, you know, residents for success in knowing, you know, what they can't do or how things affect them, that sort of thing. But I would also like to understand a little bit more about what our staff does too, without getting too far into the weeds, because that's not going to benefit me, but having some understanding so I can represent our constituents.
Okay. Okay. So what I'm hearing is from the table at large is there an appetite for more information? Most at the table are saying not really from a lawyer, it's very expensive. So one of the ideas would be to have either in-house or a neighboring community or the planner, the Westbrook Consulting, who we have engaged here as our engineering firm, to provide us with a flow sheet. I think a flow sheet would be really very helpful, and some information on like DPs, for instance. What we do know, and as Councillor Epp mentioned, that the independence of the approving officer from the council is very important, and is very important for the for objectivity to be one of the main roles in the approving officers. So the approving officers, what we all know is the approving officer role is separate and distinct from the governance role of elected officials. And certainly those two have to be separated, because you wouldn't want undue influence to the approving officer from council members one way or the other. And so that's why it is set up that way. The approving officer has the ability to approve or refuse the application, and considers that subdivision in the greater public interest. The Local Government Act doesn't really define what public interest is, but it generally, case law points to whether it is there's a lack of compliance with access, there's inadequate drainage, whether there's hazardous conditions regarding to potential avalanche, adversely affecting the natural environment, or the cost of providing utilities to that. But that's what's generally thought of as public interest, and that's from case law. So I would also be in favor of some public information. I think rather than have it at a in-camera meeting, this doesn't really need to be in camera. It would have to be if it would involve our lawyers. I don't think it needs to be in camera. It would be great for the public to also understand that council is not supposed to be a part of this, that it is it's a statutory official role responsibility. And so I think the information would be very well received by our community as well. So how about if we ask the CAO for his input in providing us with some kind of materials and some expertise, either in-house or from neighboring communities regarding the subdivision process. Councillor Gray.
So maybe just, I don't know that I can give a lot of examples because some of the questions I have would be dealt with in camera. But a few people have just mentioned the development permit question. So it wasn't that long ago that as part of Me Ask, Annie McKinnon and I went out to see Deborah Curran at the Director of Environmental Law Clinic at UVic. And I mentioned the question of development permits. And she said, oh, that's not relevant in the question of what the approving officer is doing. So right away here we've got examples of pieces are missing. And she said, you know what you need to do if people don't have good information, you need to get a seminar with your municipal lawyer. She's a lawyer, of course. She said, I can't give you legal advice. She said, but you need to get a seminar with your lawyer and your approving officer and your planner, your staff, so you can get a walkthrough with them and get it really clear what the law is. I think what I'm concerned about, so I'm taking that from, that's a good idea, makes sense to me. When I raised it the other day, for example, at this table about how about we talked to our approving officer, CAO, and said, hey, would it be helpful to talk about, prioritizing cluster development and protecting riparian areas to the provincial standard? He said, yeah, that'd be really valuable for me. I brought it to council and we refused to do it. But that's the kind of thing that we can do. We can make these statements which are not directing on a particular development because we can't get involved that way, but we can give the general direction. And I'm curious to know, for example, does our tree, like the zoning bylaw matters, the subdivision bylaw matters, does the tree management bylaw matter? Do they have to follow that bylaw? Is the approving officer follow the OCP? Because people are asking me, well, what about the OCP? It says here and that, this and that. I'm saying, well, I'm pretty sure, but I don't see that. And like Councillor Epps done, I've gone searching on the internet trying to find, I haven't found a document that, walks you through the whole thing. And so it's that confusion. And I've, tremendous experience of use of lawyers in all the work that I've done working in government and the BC government, but also the government in Nunavut and that. And we're a government here. And so sometimes we have to get a lawyer to help us get through the legal questions. And I think that this is an instance where that would be useful. I'm not saying that we can't have staff or Westbrook or others involved, but it just seems having the legal help would be useful as well. I don't consider it to be a big cost. I consider it a cost of doing business. And I don't think we should shy away from using a lawyer to get advice about a legal question. It's not that the lawyer runs the whole thing or has to be pay out a huge amount of money. As I say, we've had lawyers come here and speak to us already on a number of different issues. Seminar type work, so I was just thinking to repeat that on the advice of the person who was the backbone of writing the Green Bylaws toolkit. Saying, guys, if you understand it really well, you'll do a much better job at your council table. So that was my reason for bringing it forward. I thought it would be tremendously valuable to us, and I'll leave it there.
Okay. You know what, I struggle with this one because I'm all for spending money on education for council on something that's actionable. In this case, council is not supposed to be involved in the approving process of subdivisions unless there's a variance or amenity zoning, that kind of thing. So we're not supposed to be involved. I still come back to, I think we can get many of the answers rather from our legal counsel, from either in-house or neighboring communities. Also, if you look to other municipalities, I couldn't find a single one in the CRD where any of the subdivision information was for council's perusal. It was directly between the applicant and the approving officer. And the approving officers has that ability and the responsibility to reach out to people in the community that he or she wants information from. But that is not a council responsibility. We're responsible for setting bylaws for the OCP, the official community plan, and but not for the subdivision process. So it's going to be a lot of money, probably between $2,000 and $5,000 to have that. I don't think that's a good use of our taxpayers' dollars. Councillor Epp.
Well, just for information purposes, I believe that our own planner would be able to come in and just take us through the subdivision, or not. I don't know about somebody, but I don't think that we should be involved with lawyers.
Okay. Anybody else have any comments, questions? Just if I could ask our CAO Payette, do you feel that you'd be able to provide information either in-house from our planner, from our engineering firm, or from neighboring communities regarding this? Yeah, please. Thank you.
Next meeting.
Next.
Okay, through the chair. To be honest, I was a little surprised that council orientation didn't include information on subdivision, which would normally be the case. So first comment would be that whatever funds we do spend on the education for council would be well spent, because we can use it as a template for the next council. So that's my first point. We have enough in-house professionals that we could bring forward the steps and the nuances between the steps of subdivision. My concern, if it's going to be a public process, which I believe would be suitable for Metchosin, because we haven't done a lot of subdivisions in this municipality, to my understanding, and so there is a lot of misunderstandings about subdivision, development permits, building permits, rezoning. It's, people spend 4 years in university learning this trade, so it's complicated work. So there's value in the public education process as well. My concern would be if we have misunderstandings in the public that draw negative attention to the session, and that presenters get attacked. I'm really quite concerned about that. And so what I would recommend is that we reach out to our consultant that we have, Westbrook, or a similar consultant that is more accustomed to presenting to the public in this regard, and can talk about the nuances between the steps of subdivision in a way that the public would understand. And then staff could be, available to help with some of the questions, but that would be my recommendation to council. So it'll cost a little bit of money, but I think it would bode well for us for the next round of council as well.
Okay. Thank you for that information. Okay. Anybody else wish to comment? Councillor Gray.
Just draw your attention to the correspondence from Rob Chabot that we received. He writes, I expressed my delight at seeing 2 agenda items for the January 6th council meeting. The first item we've dealt with already. The business arising from the notice of motion from Councillor Gray regarding a seminar for council staff regarding the administrative and legal niceties of subdivision process also deserves to be made a motion and passed. A modicum of professional expertise can go a long way. Passage of both items be quite progressive, assist council in its deliberations, and involve additional professional expertise in council serving the community. Sincerely, Rob Chabot.
Thank you. Councillor Shukin.
So, thank you, Mayor Little. When I hear Councillor Gray talking about the discussion with Dr. Curran, I think that there's some, deeper things that we might look into but only after there's that base level of understanding. And so, yeah, I'm comfortable to move in the direction that you've articulated, Mayor Little, and Mr. Payette as well. The one thing I would just say, though, is that the case that Councillor Gray has made, in all due respect, is not a strong one on paper here. And Councillor Gray mentioned, if I'm thinking about the right bylaw, that was, sorry, not the bylaw, the issue that was asked of us around cluster housing previously came also with a tiny bit of information as well. Nothing to make a decision and go into a certain direction. So my request to Councillor Gray, if he wants us to go down some of these more complicated roads, it's really important that more information is provided to us to help us make a good decision. And I mentioned also this in connection with the pesticide bylaw. We did not, there was nothing in that information that would allow us to make a decision, and I'm hoping that if it comes up again, that there is some of the information that MEASC has collected, we get to see as well. So I'm happy, I think some information is a good move. And if we get that information, we decide to go down that other road, like the deeper, more intricate roads, if you will, happy to look at legal advice or some more expertise. But yeah, right now I'm not willing to support getting a lawyer to give us that base level. So,
Councillor.
I'd like to move an amendment to the motion that we ask the CAO to engage the engineering firm to give a presentation, basic presentation on subdivision guidelines.
Okay. This is an amendment proposed by Councillor Epp. Do I have a seconder? Do you want her to repeat the amendment? Yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
That we ask the CAO to engage, is it Westbrook, to give us a presentation on subdivision guidelines.
Point of order.
Yep, go ahead.
I think that changes the question before us. I think we need to vote on the motion and then follow it with it. It's not an amendment to this motion, it's a different motion entirely.
It would be amendment if it's just replacing legal counsel with another body. You don't agree?
I didn't hear those words, I heard a different motion.
Well, I guess it would be I'm not sure how I should word it, but that would be what it would be.
So perhaps that council direct the Chief Administrative Officer to organize a seminar for council and staff on the subdivision process with in-house or consulting, engineering consulting. Would that be okay, Councillor Epp?
Yes.
Seconded by Councillor Shuken. Any other comments? Councillor
As you might expect, I'll vote against it. I think that we're missing a key component here. We're going to be talking about the law, and we won't have the legal counsel there. There's much more to say, Councillor Shuken, and I'll talk to you after the meeting if that works for you, to explain some of my thinking that's not in the public document.
Okay. So I'm going to call the question on the amendment to the motion. So that is that we direct the Chief Administrative Officer to organize a seminar for council and staff on the subdivision process with our in-house staff and consulting engineering firm. Call the question. All in favor? All opposed? Councillor Gray opposed. And on the main motion, so this is that council direct Chief Administrative Officer to organize a seminar for council and staff on the subdivision process with our legal counsel. Anybody else wish to speak on this item? If not, I'll call the question. All in favor? All opposed? So we're talking about the main motion now that Councillor Gray put forward. We've made an amendment. We've already accepted that. We still have the motion on the table, so we go back to the main motion. The main motion is that the CAO provide a okay. Not do that. Okay. Okay. Okay, so I'm just for clarity's sake, I'm going to call the question on the amended motion. Okay, all in favor? Opposed? That's unanimous, thank you. It's getting late. Okay, with that, I'll take a motion to adjourn. Moved by Councillor Shukin. Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot, it's a question period. Sorry about that, I was too eager to leave. Does any of our community participants have any questions for us or comments? Thank you, Councillor, for reminding me.
Gary Lem, Hackmore Drive, just regarding the public address system. Sometimes you can hear very well and other times you can't. Mayor Little is generally quite well. Councillor Gray, difficulty, but presumably over time you'll work out the bugs.
Okay, thank you.
Patty Whitehouse, Rocky Point Road, is exactly right, and a lot has to do with how the mic is used. Just as was the case with the previous one, this has better volume, but no better clarity unless the mic is used properly. You need to be about 6 inches away from it and speak directly into it, and then you'll come out crystal clear.
Okay, thank you.
I don't know if we should let people know that this wasn't actually a council meeting. It was just a big long sound check. So thank you. No? Okay.
I got a message from someone saying that they were having trouble hearing it on the video, though. I couldn't hear Tina at all. Oh, but you're also sort of quiet. I think that's just part of it. But yeah, they said they had their TV cranked and were having trouble hearing all of you guys. People here were a bit better. So just for general information. And I did have one question about the 911 system, if it's okay if I ask about that, because I wasn't quite clear. Will it still kind of work the same
Yes.
as it does now?
Yes.
Like, how will it be different? Sorry? Like on my phone? Oh, so it doesn't affect me when I call. I will not know that it's digital. Okay, that's what I was wondering.
Yeah, Councillor Shukin, go ahead.
So the big move is analog from digital, but also the goal is to be able to upload video and pictures and whatnot in kind of real time. So that will apparently aid first responders. So that's one of the benefits. So, but more than anything, it is just that system-wide upgrade that's going on all through Canada. And Chief probably knows tons about this. But okay.
And Councillor Epp.
It should also allow texting.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, absolutely. Speak
Do
right
we
into the
retain
microphone,
a
okay?
lawyer? Do we actually, may I ask what law firm that is?
Lidstone and Company. Lidstone and Company.
Okay. So I thought Councillor Gray's thought about learning about a subdivision was actually a good thought, except that I think myself, my family actually pioneered and built Vancouver. And I was brought up in that scenario always, and we did the Fraser Valley and we did other provinces. And then when I graduated from high school, I thought I'd like to be an accountant, right? And so I took the first 2 years of accounting, and then I ended up working for the Ministry of Transportation out in the field office. And by that time I had a couple of degrees and a few other things, and I started looking at taking planning courses, DCIT engineering, a few other urban economics, and did all the development for the development officer for 22 years. And I am still in that business, but in privately, and I actually work without a salary for property lawyers. I do the work, put the cases together. And I thought, Councillor Ray, I thought that was a good idea, but development is not just subdivisions. Everyone thinks that, right? I could go on for every time I go out socially, people ask me questions, and I'm boring because I go on for ages on it, but I think it would be a good idea to have some idea, but there is a risk in thinking you might know subdivision or development. And even I find right now, because the laws have changed tax-wise federally in the last 6 months, year, we don't know where we are tax-wise, and we don't know distinctly where we are to do with development in British Columbia. It's all in flux completely, because now you don't have any zoning. Government, 4 people run the zoning in British Columbia now. So you can take that course or get some idea of development or subdivisions, but right now we're in flux completely. Tax wise and development, period.
Okay.
Only
So
a
it's
few people
complex.
are running it,
Yeah.
so it's
Thank
good
you.
to have a background, but believe me, it takes you about 40 or 50 years. And even then, now, I still can't answer some of the questions.
Okay. So it's complex. It reiterates Councillor Gray's request for more information. So, thank you. Thank you for that.
Eric White, 4290 Machosen Road. On the subject of getting in more information on subdivisions, I am all for government transparency, and I think if you do go ahead and get that information, that it would be good to give to the public. But on the other hand, I also believe that if you don't want what's in the box, don't touch the box. We should almost forget we had this conversation and just let people have to do their own research, put their own work in, right? You can hand them a map, or you can say, go find the treasure yourself.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. So with that, I will thank you for your public participation. You're welcome to come all year. I'll take a motion to adjourn. Moved by Councillor Shukin, second by Councillor Donaldson. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you.